Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Scoreboard Keepers. I am your host, the Ref, and you already know the routine. We'll be right back in 30 seconds with Rashid Shaheed. We'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to the Scoreboard Keepers. Around here, we don't keep receipts, we keep the score. So if you want to get on the board, make your point. If it makes sense, we'll add it to the board. If it don't, we won't. Scoreboard Keepers.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Scoreboard Keepers. I am your host, the Ref, where I keep you up to speed and everything sports, hip hop, and hot topics. And what's the topic tonight? Rashid Shaheed on the trading block. What's the market? And what does it mean for, the NFL? What does this mean? If you're looking at this from an objective point of view, many teams can benefit from Rashid Shaheed's talents. So, welcome back to the Scoreboard Keepers Scouting Report. This is brought to you by the Scoreboard Keepers, where we don't keep receipts, we keep the score. And tonight, we're going to zoom in on one of the most intriguing trade rumors in the NFL right now as we approach the deadline. Wide receiver Rashid Shaheed of the Saints is reportedly available. And it raises questions about his value, fit, and what it means for both players and the team. New Orleans has a plethora of wide receivers down there. Make no mistake about it. So this is all about how Rashid Shaheed is going to fit wherever, he may end up going. We'll trace the origin of the chatter, break down his performance, analyze the potential landing spots, and assess the ripples and the moves that it could create. As you can see in the photo, the Giants, Bills, Steelers, there's teams out there that need a receiver. Not like yesterday. They need one like yesterday. Not tomorrow. They need one right now. Right now they need one. Shaheed was drafted by the Saints and is a speed threat, receiver, and a return specialist. In the 2025 season so far, through 8 games, he has 39 receptions for 431 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's not bad. That's not bad. We know that that's not the main target numbers, but it's most definitely not bad for somebody in his position just coming on the scene. In 2023, he had his most productive season, 46 catches, 719 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And now that's number 2 numbers. Some number ones on some teams, but if you have aspirations of getting into playoffs and to AFC, NFC championships and Super Bowls, that's a great complimentary number 2 receiver, in my opinion. In my humble opinion, that's a great number 2 receiver. But the Saints are 1-7 this season, clearly struggling, and the trade market chatter is definitely heating up all over the league right now with a lot of different players from different positions. So why this trade would make sense for the Saints, let's see. New Orleans appears to be shifting towards a rebuild mode with the team underperforming and an age-weighted roster behind it. Trading Shaheed could free up cap space and can land some draft assets. Because, how teams feel about draft day. If you can get something good in return for him, I couldn't see why the Saints wouldn't move on it, being as though they have a lot of receivers down there. That's not one of the places that they're lacking talent. Shaheed's contract is $4.25 million, base salary in 2025, and eligible for free agency in March. So this shit benefits everybody. If he gets out there and does his thing, he'd be up for a new deal. And if the Saints are trying to recoup some of the assets that they lost or going to lose in trading him, this seems like a friendly deal for seller and buyer, if you ask me. It seems like it's friendly for both. The asking price for him, league sources believe that the Saints would like to receive a 3rd-round pick for him. Now, a 3rd-round pick is, you're right there on the middle of me telling you no. Now, you want a 3rd-round pick for somebody that's going to be coming up for a contract in March, a new contract? I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure personally how we feel about this over here at the Scoreboard Keepers on the Scouting Report. Other teams may feel differently if they have the assets, but giving up a 3rd and somebody that's coming into a new contract in March, you have to sit down and bring everybody in the room and have a conversation. It has to be a sit down. His potential, and then you have to look at his potential destinations and the fits. Where does he fit in? With who and where and what scheme does he fit in? Buffalo Bills, they need a deep threat receiver to pair with Josh Allen. Shaheed's speed could unlock big plays and clutch points for them boys up there. Now, my question is, can he go from playing inside of that dome in New Orleans to 32 below zero in Buffalo? Can he handle that? That's something that I have to ask my offense coordinator, have to ask my general manager, and we have to all sit down at the table and discuss these kind of things because they are important. It's not perfect conditions up there. Can he handle that type of weather and be and contribute in Buffalo with Josh Allen? I mean, that could be deadly in a perfect situation. I mean, Josh Allen doesn't really need a lot of help. But when he does get it, he maximizes it. So I can't say that I like or dislike that choice, but that would have to be up to the Buffalo Bills and where he fits in schematically with them. Denver Broncos, 6-2 this season. It's a prime opportunity to add firepower around Bo Nix and their offense. Shaheed would definitely add a vertical threat for them. You're talking about Mile High. And they lost Jerry Jeudy. They sent Jerry Jeudy to Cleveland. So it's not like they can't use somebody. They can't use a number 2 for that vertical threat and that offense with their defense playing as well as it is right now. But and listen, guys, you got to remember, this is why I think he's going to end up in Denver. Because their quarterback their coach, Sean Payton, has a history with the New Orleans Saints. He has good history down there with the New Orleans Saints. So he may have an inside lead or inside road to Rashid Shaheed that everybody else doesn't have. Everybody else doesn't have that. That's why I think all these teams that we listed right here and we didn't list Denver is because they're the dark horse that we believe is going to come out of this deal with Rashid Shaheed. That's what we believe over here. So we have to give our opinions on that. And just be honest. They have an inside road to that organization with Sean Payton. So everybody's talking about all these other teams, but hey, listen, Pittsburgh Steelers could use a speed opposite of DK Metcalf right now. And the trade rumors got them linked to Shaheed. But do I believe that they're going to give up a 3rd round for Shaheed, the Pittsburgh Steelers? I don't think so. I think they'd be willing to give up. I think they would start with offering a 7 and be willing to give up a 6. But I don't think they're giving up a 3rd round for this player. Once again, outside conditions, it can get cold. It can get a little bumpy and a little bruisey. So you're coming out of that dome and playing in some inclement weather. You have to look at schematics. Is he tough enough to play in those kind of conditions? Not taking anything away from him, but it is a difference. You got to have some thick skin to be able to play outside like that. Other teams are chasing receivers also. that could be putting in offers, and this is why we have the Giants up there. The more teams that put in their offers for him, Shaheed's value it rises with these contending teams lacking the big play speed. And that's why we have the Giants up there. Because, they lost Malik Neighbors. And when you come back next year, right, and I believe the Giants have a little bit of coin, if you can get somebody like Malik Neighbors and Rashid Shaheed around Jackson Dart coming back next year and they'd be willing to pay a receiver some good money, this would be a good move for the New York Giants, if you ask me. But there's risk. There's risk and questions around everything. But if you don't get in the game, you can't win. You got to play to win, right? Ladies and gentlemen, that's the buzzer. We're going into the second quarter. Injuries, or hip issues, because right now, Shaheed is listed as questionable with the hip injury ahead of a game that may affect his trade value. So already we're talking about this guy. Is he durable enough to play in those kind of conditions? Because you're going to have a hip injury every week. If you come in that AFC North, you're going to have a hip injury every week, whether it's from Cleveland, whether it's from Baltimore, whether it's from Cincinnati, and then, you have your production drop off from that 2023 season. His yardage and touchdowns this season are way lower than that year, than that breakout campaign that he has. And it raises questions about his durability and his role. And what does he bring to these franchises? So if I'm any general manager right now that's playing in inclement weather and cold conditions after November, I'm cautious on who I'm bringing inside of there. That's very important, and then it also is for your timing, the trade timing for acquiring teams, the cost, the third round pick versus reward. It got to be justified. He got to come in there. If you're giving up a third, no hip issues, man. No hip issues. You can't be having no hip issues if I'm giving up a third. Or is this going to just be short term for somebody like a rental? Or is this a long-term upgrade? These general managers got to be on their job. They got to be really willing to do their jobs, because it seems like all the teams that are looking for them play in inclement weather. And it's about to start getting cold in some of them places. And I mean, it don't get no better in Mile High. Damn it, you got to go be able to breathe. You're going from the lowest part of the earth to the highest part of the earth. You know what I mean? New Orleans is below sea level. So, how it gets down there. You're going from one extreme to the other. He may get up there in the Mile High and can't even breathe. So his fit, it's good. Speed is great. But does he fit their offensive scheme? That's the question. Does he fit all the elements around him, and the strengths? Do they fit where he's going? Will he be used properly in a new system like he is familiar with down there in New Orleans? They're all questions a general manager is going to have to raise and going to have to ask. You know what I mean? For the Saints, if they trade him, do they still have enough weapons around their quarterback to remain competitive, or is it a full teardown? Is it a full teardown? I don't think so, because if they do get rid of him and they receive a third round, and I heard Alvin Kamara might be on the move as well, they could be sitting pretty in next year's draft. So it's not a full teardown, but it is I would say a mini rebuild. How about that? Because these players are, Alvin Kamara is up there in age a little bit, and you just could be replacing him, and you're not really losing anything because you already have good receivers. You already have enough receivers. You're not hurting in this position, so I'm not calling this a rebuild. I'm going to call it a mini teardown. That's what I'm going to call it, a mini teardown, because I believe they're going to replace him with somebody right there that they have in their building, and come back next year with all this extra picks and just rebuild and be right back on the scene next year. So I'm not calling this a full rebuild, as some people are alleging. So here's my hot takes on Rashid Shaheed. Shaheed is primed to move. The Saints will, execute definitely before the deadline. But the bigger question is where does he land, and whether the acquiring team can use him properly, being as though that these are some of the some cold weather teams that's looking at him and he's going outside. How would they use a speed guy like that that's already ailing from a few injuries? Just being questionable right now with a hip. That's not something. I mean, if he has a hip injury, like what's going on with that? I mean, your wheels. You don't have your wheels. That could take a while to come back from, especially if it's been lingering. So I would be definitely looking into that just to see if he can even pass a physical. If he joins a contending team with a quarterback like, hey, Josh Allen. I mean, look, the deep ball is going. Josh Allen would trust him with that, just to go deep, man, just to loosen up that defense and keep it honest. He can become a serious difference maker. He's not somebody just a good player. He can move the needle. He can move the needle for somebody like Josh Allen. But if he lands somewhere where they just using him as a gadget, then he won't benefit from that. So if I'm Rashid Shaheed, I'm looking at the offensive coordinator as well. From his point of view, he has to know where he fits best at as well. You got to be willing to go somewhere where the offensive coordinator is going to try to get that ball to you as much as possible. Right now, you're looking at Jackson Dart, who throws it all over the yard. You're looking at Bo Nix that throws it all over the yard. And Buffalo, what they do. Yeah, so the only team that's really looking at him, that I would say you have to really be careful, is the Steelers. Now, we know Aaron Rodgers likes to throw the ball over the yard, but he don't have a relationship with Aaron Rodgers right now. He doesn't have, like, Pittsburgh is about running and stopping the run. So for the Saints, this might be the smartest decision, of their little mini rebuild, but only if they can reclaim all the meaningful assets and not just, some cut bait. Like they need to get, if they can require a third round for him, I'm going to say that this trade would be a win-win. It would be a win-win for both sides, as long as the strategy aligns with him, man. If he can get to a good place and they can receive a third, this is a win for the team, and this is also a win for Rashid. I'm going to say in the score or snore segment of this potential free agent move, Rashid's trade value right now, I'm going to say score, because everybody know what he's capable of doing. It's danger in everything. So there's risk in everything that you're going to do when it comes to acquiring these kind of players. We've seen his ability to stretch the field, but you're taking a risk on somebody that has a hip injury and going into these cold weather places and expecting the same type of results. And it's going to take them a couple of weeks to learn the playbook. So I'm going to say a score, because it is possible, but it comes with a risk. That's for sure. The acquisition for a buyer right now, I'm going to say for certain people, if you're asking me about New York Giants, I'm going to say score. If you're asking me about Buffalo Bills, I'm going to say score. If you're asking me about the Denver Broncos, I'm going to say snore. I'm going to say snore, because if he goes to Denver, you're going to have a younger quarterback in Bo Nix. I'm not saying Bo Nix can't get the ball around the yard, but if I'm him, you would have to put the quarterbacks up on a shelf and look at them and say, which one of these quarterbacks would I prefer throwing me the ball? Would I prefer Josh Allen or Bo Nix? I don't even think that's debatable. Is it? We know how much Josh Allen loves to throw the ball. Not only that, he can rush. And he's a savvy veteran. He has more control of the offense than Bo Nix does with Sean Payton. So if there's a problem with the offense, in Denver, you can look right at Sean Payton because Sean Payton's in control of everything. Josh Allen has a little more leeway with that offense. And in Pittsburgh, I don't think you would be getting the ball as often as you would think because they try to get the ball to their tight ends, and of course they're going to go to DK, and then they love to run the ball. This is just all schematically what these teams do. Now, I'm just talking about for his type of talent and where I think it would fit best. I don't think it's any secret that it probably would be Buffalo. Probably would be Buffalo if I had to go off of that. So I'm going to say that, the points are different and vary. So for Steelers, I'm going to say Snore. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap for tonight's scouting report. Rashid Shaheed is a player in the motion right now. He in the move. He on the move right now. So the question isn't whether he gets traded, but it's where and how he's going to get used. That's the only question, and when, because the free agent deadline is November the 4th. So that's right around the corner. So somebody's going to have to make a move basically this weekend or going out and right in the beginning of the week. Right after that Sunday's game after tomorrow, people better be on the phone and talking. So drop your thoughts below. Which team gets Shaheed and how does he push them to the Super Bowl? Which team do you really think he can move the needle with? What bets fits for him? You know what I mean? Let me know. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We are on the race to 10,000 subscribers. So thumb up the video. I'm calling you guys my scoreboard bullies. Okay, you guys are my scoreboard bullies. All right. I look forward to seeing you guys down in the comment where I love to interact with the scoreboard bullies and just to see what the temperature is out there on certain topics. I would love to see what you guys feel about this. This could go either way, for wherever he goes or whoever gets him. But for the Saints, I think it's a win-win situation. So make sure you guys just thumb up this video, get involved, man, and subscribe, you guys. This is what we do over here. I'm your host, The Ref, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. So until the next time, in the next Scoreboard Keeper Scouting Report, God bless, and we will see you on the next episode. Score. Good luck, Rashid Shaheed.